Good morning, everyone. We are going to get started on our first presentation for the Spring 2015 College Experience. We have two new presenters today. Mr. John Crane, he will be presenting Early Alert in the coaching system, and Matthew Bodie, who will handle out-of-class support. Welcome, gentlemen. We're very glad you're here today. So starting us off is going to be Courtney. Courtney, are you on the line?
Good morning, Dr. Williams. Actually, this is Julie Gomez.
Hey, Julie.
Thank you. I'm going to be presenting on behalf of Courtney. She's out today.
All right.
Okay, so beginning with slide 1, by the third week of classes, 448 first-time in college students college-wide have attended a new student orientation. Of these 448, 182 are flexible placement. In the spring term, the first time in college that have not attended an NSO session are about 859 students, which 357 are flexible placement. Next slide, please. NSO students continue to gain a knowledge of college resources, as we found in the past semesters, through continuous contact with staff. The increased contact with students provide information on services available through campus and online resources such as learning support. This slide demonstrates that the NSO students do utilize the Learning Support Commons at a higher percentage than the non-NSO students. The numbers are also consistent with the fall 490 term. Slide 3 looks at the Learning Support Commons and the total number of visits. We've had 376 visits from NSO students. We expect this number to continue to increase. Here, the data reflects specific reasons for student visits. And as predicted from previous semesters, most of the first time in college NSO students are utilizing learning support for writing, followed by math. For new student orientation, we have seen an overall higher career coding of new students. Across campuses, advising departments continue to work on coding students accordingly, and various campuses are reaching out to the students that are not coded to ensure that they have the opportunity to meet with a career service representative. Okay, when talking about learning plans, this slide looks at the NSO student completion of the My Learning Plan. The new student orientation first time in college students reflect a higher initiation on the MLPs, which means they've started an MLP greater than those that did not attend a new student orientation. And finally, going forward, there are 7 new student orientation sessions scheduled between today and next Tuesday, and we'll be working across campuses to work on initiatives to try to promote the NSL more to new students. Thank you, and if anyone has any questions.
Julie, I have a few questions. First of all, this is good. We don't see the numbers. I see percentages. I see this percentage of this population did this. Can we get the real numbers, like if it's 15 or if it's 20 or if it's 100, just to really get the gist of the number of students that we are talking about? And then on the first slide, when we talked about the difference between the number of students who attended NSO this spring as opposed to last spring due to the DevEd piece, can we break that information out a little bit more in reference to those who did not take the NSO and what their choices were, like what did they decide? And Jesse may have this information, so I may be able to provide it to you, but just want a little bit more detail on that, a little bit more detail on the numbers instead of percentages. You can keep the percentages, but just let's add the numbers to it.
Absolutely, we'll work on that for next week. Thank you.
Good morning, this is Annie McGregor. I'll be presenting on integrated career and academic advising. So if you can go to our first slide, please. All right, so this semester, Career Services is working on adding some new metrics so that we can measure end-to-end services from the beginning of their visit with us to their job placement at the end. So you can see here we've identified those areas that we're going to be targeting over the course of our presentations, and they'll be represented throughout our report. Next slide, please. All right, taking a look at our career cohort for this spring 2015 semester, you can see where we started with our red, yellow, and green students, as well as our not coded. Over the course of week 2, our greatest change occurred for our not coded students, with the academic advisors and career service staff working to get those students either on the phone or face-to-face to talk about their career decision and their career goals. And so a number of them have been coded. We'll be continuing to work with those students as well as our red and yellow students to help them through the career decision process. Next slide, please. As per our 16-week outreach strategy, we are going into our SLS 1101 classrooms and making our presentations on Focus 2. This semester, the regular session has 32 SLS 1101 classes being offered. We have visited 17 of those classrooms, and we have 15 presentations to go, which have all been scheduled. So we're really excited that the faculty is on board with our career services staff coming into their classroom. This term also, we have 47% of our students first time in college for the spring registered in SLS 1101, which is an increase over the fall term, which was 33%. So we're hoping to reach a number of those red and yellow and not coded students through the classroom visits. Next slide, please. Here we wanted to showcase that end-to-end services. We talk a lot about what's happening in the beginning and a little bit about internships, but we wanted to show what's being done over the course of a student's time with us. So we highlighted some of the top services given by our career services staff. You can see for weeks 1 and 2, week 1 is in blue and week 2 is in red. General information is definitely something that happens a lot, as well as with the internship registration being high for the beginning of the semester, internship information, placement, and preparation. You can also see some of the other work we're doing with our students in resume preparation, interview preparation, and cover letter writing, as well as Focus 2 and career assessments and college major selection. So we'll continue to identify the services that are some of the top services given by our career staff. Next slide, please. We have been going into classrooms over the courses of weeks 1 and 2. As I mentioned earlier, we've gone into 17 of our SLS 1101 classes. We've also, at the downtown campus, had a great number of other classroom visits, so we wanted to showcase that here. 584 students have been reached through classroom presentations just in weeks 1 and 2. We've also had several events and workshops on each campus or on several of our campuses over the first 2 weeks, and as you can see, 98 students have attended those events and workshops. Next slide, please. Here we're looking at the industry certification test preparation, and this is specific to our IT certifications. We can see that there was a great increase in test prep registration over the month of December. That's obviously the course is completed, and so students are gearing up to take the certification exam, so they've gone through the test prep. If you look at the next slide, please. You can see the number of students who have completed and passed those certification exams. And the top bar is the industry IT certifications, followed by the public safety and then education. There is quite a ways to go on certifications that are needed to meet the goal identified by the deans and the workforce personnel. But they are working with faculty to get our students by week 4 ready for that test prep exam and then to prepare to test. So there's a lot of initiative behind getting our students certified so that they can continue to use those towards employment. Next slide, please. Oh,
Go back.
back one, please. Oh, it's missing its chart, but just in case you were curious what was there, you would see that 950 students have registered for internships this spring. We had a goal of reaching 1,019 internships for the spring term. We are 69 students away from that goal, and we do believe that hopefully we'll get really close to that, if not reach that goal, as internship registration continues through Express session. Last slide, please. All right, so actions for this week. Per our 16-week outreach strategy, we will continue to reach out to our red and yellow students and begin that career exploration process. We also have coming up on February 26th a program fair led by Dean Demers, which will focus on providing information for red and yellow students as well as many other as far as what job opportunities are available with certain majors. So we're very excited about that event coming up and are encouraging our red and yellow students to attend so that they can learn more about college major selection. We will complete the scheduled presentations in our SLS 1101 classrooms. We will also continue to work with students to register and find placement in the internships for the spring semester, as mentioned earlier, and promote summer internships as those deadlines are quickly approaching. Next week, we also have a job shadow event with 38 students registered to attend and follow someone in their career of interest. So we're excited to see how that impacts students' decision in their career goal. We will increase conversion of students enrolled in test prep courses to actual test completion, again, to work towards that higher number that we saw we're still a little bit behind on. And then we're going to work toward continuous improvement of the process to serve our graduation applicants who are seeking employment assistance. This concludes our report.
Good job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning. This is David Wilburn at the Tarpon Springs campus. I'll be giving the My Learning Plan update. The first slide you see here is showing you the total SLS 1101 students. There's 1,360 of them. And you can see at 0 terms we have 613, and with 1 or more we're at 747. It's a good starting position. Considering last spring we were at 37%, so we're about 20% higher than where we started last spring. On the right, I am showing you the number of students minus the dual enrolled students, and there's 212 total dual enrolled, and you can see the distribution there. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Can you hear me?
Yes, I see the slide. You don't see the slide?
No, ma'am, I do not. It's all right, though. I've got a paper copy here to be fine.
Okay. Can everyone else see the slide?
I can.
Okay.
We can see it here.
I can see it here.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Okay, David, you're going to have to wing it.
All right, that's all right. I should be okay. This slide's showing you the total campus distribution of the SLS 1101 students. You can see right there in column F, if you go to the bottom, we're 54.9%. Again, like I pointed out, that's almost 20% higher than last spring. So we've started higher than we ever have. So I think as far as the SLS goes, we're going to have a good term. Next slide, please. Here you're looking at the advisor visits. I hope commitments. The commitments are for week 1 and 2. We had 6 total visits so far. Everybody's just kind of getting going on them, and you can see that out of the 6 visits, all of them were complete. And coming up next week, there'll be 18 additional visits. Clearwater and Tarpon have added some visits to classes that they'll be taking part in. Next slide, please. This is our outreach group slide. We just had a meeting this past Friday. Started our usual Friday morning meetings with our outreach groups, and we're just getting our activities set up to know what each campus is doing, what each group is doing. But you can see we've got some pretty good numbers so far. It says 66.1%. That's a little bit misleading, just simply because we have a few cohorts that are missing from the piece that should be added this week. Our warning, probation, restrictions, suspension, and probate, all that should be going into BI this week. And so this list will grow, and that percentage will change. But as you can see, we're starting off with 2 people already, 2 groups at 100%. You've got George Carbart and Ramona Kirsch that I have no doubt will be at 100% very soon. So we've got some good numbers going there. Hopefully we can keep our momentum going. Next slide, please. The final slide showing you the total student body for week 2. You can see that there are 16,799 total plans. The distribution is about what we come to expect. It's at 3,200 for 1 term. 2 to 6 terms seems to be where most plans are currently at 10,000, and then 7 or more terms are 3,400. And unless there's any questions, that'll complete my report.
I have a question. How are we going to gauge how the students are going back and using the plan? Can your team go back and look at that? They set the plan one time. Can we find out how many are going back and looking are using it?
Yes, ma'am. I actually had a discussion with Rod Davis earlier. We were talking about that. It's my understanding that that's being worked into with Civitas,
Okay.
With the new MLP, they're having that programmed into that MLP
Okay.
system. So,
Okay, good. Well, we'll bring that back later. That's good. Thank you so much.
yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, John, you're up.
Good morning. This is John Crane at the Health Education Center. I'll be presenting on the Early Alert and Student Coaching System update. This first slide is a comparison of the early alerts for weeks 1 and 2 of this semester and the early alerts for spring 2014. As you can see, we are at a total of 91 alerts by the end of week 2. Last spring, we had 218 in the same time frame. Next slide, please. This slide shows the number of sections per gateway course per campus, including the number of students enrolled and the number of early alerts received. For example, St. Petersburg Gibbs campus offers 6 sections of ACG 2021. In these 6 sections, there are 239 students enrolled. Week 1, there was 1 alert sent out. In week 2, there were 3 alerts sent out, totaling 4 alerts, or 1.7% of the enrolled students.
Yeah, that's the presentation that they're presenting about. Every Wednesday morning, we have the college experience meeting.
Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This slide is identical to the previous slide, except that it shows the developmental classes rather than the gateway classes. Next slide, please. This slide depicts the number of early alerts and shows the outreach efforts. Of the 91 early alerts to date, 36 students have had contact made and alerts closed. At the end of week 1, 10 alerts had not received communication. At the end of week 2, 20 remain uncontacted. Advisors are working to reach out to the remaining students, and I anticipate the number of students contacted to be significantly higher next week. Next slide, please. This slide depicts the referrals of early alert students. Between weeks 1 and 2, there's been 87 referrals. This number is not indicative of non-duplicated students. Several of these students were referred to multiple services. Next slide, please.
Question about these referrals. Is this what the advisors are sending out? Are the advisors referring? I mean, what do you mean?
Once the coaches receive the early alerts, after meeting with the students, they deem whether they need to send the student back to the instructor, financial aid, or whatever the case is to help that student individually.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Next slide, please. Going forward, advisors are working hard to ensure contact is made with the remaining students and referrals are made to the best sources for student assistance. Next week, we will start looking at the early withdrawal rates. Additionally, next week, the Student Coaching System Steering Committee is resuming meetings to develop strategies to reach out to the students. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Greetings, this is Matthew Bodie, Associate Director of Learning Resources for the Clearwater campus and for online academic support services. Wanted to give a big heaping of gratitude to Heather Distler for her work over the last few semesters. Her time in town has been wonderful to have, and thank you very much for helping me out as we prepared this week's presentation on out-of-class support. The first slide you see in front of you is regarding faculty engagement. On the left, you can see that in the second week, we had 68 faculty members contributing 128 hours to libraries and learning centers. It's a strong start for us. By campus on the right, you can see that St. Petersburg Gibbs has the largest portion of the pie chart, with 19 faculty members contributing 35 hours a week. You might also note that the adjunct faculty are not included in the charts, but offered 30 additional hours in week 2. Next slide, please. This slide is representative of class visits. Class visits includes tours and facility uses by class groups as they come over to learning centers and libraries. The first 2 weeks we had a strong start with 58 class visits and over 1,400 students served. On the right, you can see that HEC had the largest attendance numbers with 186 students. Next slide, please. This slide represents workshops. Workshops include academic and success-themed programming. They're usually performed by our instructional support staff. This happens outside of class time. On the left, you'll see that already 134 workshops have been fulfilled out of the 986 scheduled for the semester, with 608 students already served. What that looks like on campus is that, for instance, Tarpon Springs has over 500 workshops scheduled for science this semester, with about 35 rolling workshops each week to cover A&P 1 and 2, Intro to Chem, Chemistry 1 and 2, and Microbiology 1. On the right, you can see that the student success and science take up the largest portions of the pie. I already addressed the science portion, but the student success area is probably attributed to the My Courses training for students. That's where that a lot of the trainings for that our instructional support staff did fall in that category. Next slide, please. Slide 4 here represents library instructions. Library instructions are course integrated sessions whereby librarians provide an orientation to our online library tools or work with students to enhance research strategies for a particular assignment. 39 library instructions have already been fulfilled out of 149, with the greatest number, as you can see on the right-hand side, coming from HEC. That's due mostly in part to the fact that they're prepping them early with research skills for their 8-week mods. Next slide, please. This slide represents interactions that take place on Smart Thinking. Smart Thinkings are, if you're not aware, is our third-party service that we have with the college. Provides both synchronous and asynchronous tutoring to our students, both distance learners and people who are on ground. And you will see over on the left, we already have 44 hours of time that students have utilized this service. On the right, which is kind of a little bit anomalous to what is normally goes on, you can see that they are working with math, which is something that we haven't seen a lot of. But I will say that you see Essay Center down there, which probably as in we move to the 3rd and 4th weeks as Comp 1 and Comp 2 have their papers due, and oftentimes they will be sending in their papers to Smart Thinking for review. You will see that number we expect to grow on that side. Next slide, please. This slide is a comparison of total services given by campus of week 1 and 2, over spring 2014-15. You can see that we've got a good strong showing. Most of the numbers are up at the campuses for this year. You see that in blue is the 2014 and red is 2015. Downtown has a significant increase. Kudos to Heather Disler and her team. I spoke with her this week. She said that most of those are probably attributed to the fact that academic chair for math, Nadia Nelson, has implemented a new math worksheet initiative that's driving students to come to the Learning Center and get help and get the worksheets and get help with those worksheets as they're there. Next slide, please. This slide represents total visits to Learning Centers. And you can see at the top there that majority of, in the pie there, the majority of the total visits to Learning Centers have to do with computer use, email, and web use, and then homework, print, and study are the largest pieces. But you can see over 1,300 students have been in, or 1,500 visits, I should say, have been attributed to math and stats. Below that, you'll see, can you go back one, sorry. Below that, you'll see total number of unduplicated students by campus for weeks 1 and 2, distributed across our largest areas tutored. That's math and stats in blue, science in red, and writing, reading, speech in green. Again, you can see downtown is quite significant there. As I mentioned earlier, in that math area, she had great work there with the department. Over on the right-hand side, you can see frequency of visits, unduplicated in blue and duplicated in red. You can see a strong showing with over 3,700 students visiting 1 or 2 times, and over 700 unique students visiting 3 or 4 times. That's great for as we've just moved into the second week. We'll expect to see more move into those 3 and 4 and 5 to 9 as we move into the semester. At the very bottom, you'll note that almost 5,000 unduplicated students have been to Learning Centers. Last slide, please. Actions for this week. We're working with the Title III grant on working to complete the curriculum for Smart Start program for libraries and learning centers. The second thing there on the agenda is to complete library instructions. We have a number of them, as you saw, that get scheduled, and they get scheduled not all at the beginning of the semester. We'll still have ones coming in over the course of the semester asking us to take care of those, so we'll have those will ramp up and we'll fulfill those. Also workshops, we have a lot scheduled, as I said to you earlier, almost 1,000 of them for the year, or for the semester rather, and we're working diligently through that. And of course, the last thing is we want to increase class visits, so we'll continue to do good outreach that we already are doing to the classrooms and to our faculty partners, allowing them to come in to our areas. That concludes my report. Any questions?
Good job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All
Hi,
right.
good morning.
Good
This is
morning.
Anna Marie Root, HR Professional Development Manager, reporting in on training on behalf of the Student Services Training Committee. Our first area of focus for training for student services in January was financial aid training. That occurred on Friday, January 16th. And what you're seeing there are completions by campus for advising staff members. That was the target audience for this training. We targeted about 142 advising staff members. Now, I do have to mention that we have this training available online. We recorded Todd Smith's facilitation of the training, and our team was a little bit on the learning curve with working with video and uploading video into D2L My Courses. So it took a little bit longer to make this module available online. So that's the reason for the percentages being where they are. We have all of the members that still need the training in queue to receive that training online now in D2L My Courses. And I also wanted to mention very quickly that 26 additional staff members who were outside of the target audience also completed the training. So we thought that was very noteworthy. Next slide, please. So our actions for this week. Well, the good news is, as of last night, the advising staff members that I mentioned that were in queue to complete the training online have actually been enrolled, and an email was sent so that they will have accessibility to that training beginning this morning. So that's one area that has been taken care of and we're ready to move forward on. So we expect our percentages for next week to be much higher in terms of completion. And then the other item is that our second area of training focus for student services staff is the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA training. That is scheduled for this coming Friday, January 30th. It is going to be facilitated via link, which is, webinar style, and it is being facilitated by Barbara Thompson and Jeff Ziegler. And we're recording that link session, and now that we have learned how to correctly upload our link videos into D2L My Courses with help from our instructional design specialist team, that will be smooth sailing in getting folks to complete that aren't able to attend Friday's session live. So that completes my report. Are there any questions?
Yes, Anna Marie, can you bring next Wednesday the training plan for the spring term? That will help us. I don't know what to expect for this spring. And so I'm going to need your help on that. Bring the whole term.
Yes.
Someone, I think your microphone is unmuted by mistake. So if you could bring that next week, that would be very helpful.
Yes, will do. Thank you, Dr. Williams.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Good job. Let's get ready for next week. Phil, your phone is not muted. This ends our meeting this morning. Have a great day.
Thank you, Tasha.